Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in the Story, and today is Lenormarch day 18, and it is Friday. And you say, what do you have going on there, Kelly? And I say, well, let's talk about this for a minute, people. So today's a little tip or little thing to make, make you think about is about people in Lenormand cards. Now, I brought out both the Mystical Kipper and the Mystical Lenormand just because they're by the same artist and writer set. So you could see them as a set, even though there are people who don't like either one of these. And I will say this isn't the main Kipper deck that I use. I mostly use the Marchetti one, and I may have to beg Quilfin to make me a handmade Kipper one. Annika! No. I generally am using the Findisicle one or the original Kipper. But I thought because these are by the same artist, I would use them for examples. So you can see that in terms of a straight up person card, in Lenormand, there's only three. We have the man, we have the woman, and we have the child, which generally denotes, small things, new beginnings, that kind of thing. But, it can actually be a child. And there we have it. Now, then we're going to get to the fact that there are other people to look towards, but in terms of the way the card system is, those are the three people cards. Whereas in Kipper, you can see there are quite a lot more people that are built in. Still 36 cards, but there's more people built in. So we have the man and the woman, which would be, these two. And then we have the child, which would be, so these would represent the three that are in Lenormand. And then we have the good gentleman and the good lady, the military person, the false person, the rich girl or the person who's carefree and these types of things, the rich good gentleman, yet usually a younger businessman. These are both kind of mentory people that you can look up to. And then we have a court person or kind of an officially kind of person here. So we have 7 other people card that more than we have with the traditional Lenormand. And you'll say, well, that's not right. That's not fair. But I wanted to give you a little tip, because that's what I'm trying to do, is give you little tips as we go along and show you that there's actually more people represented in Lenormand. And this is why I highly recommend having at least one deck that has a nice prominent playing card included on the card itself. Because now the man and the woman are the aces. So the ace of hearts is the man and the ace of spades is the woman, which I think is kind of too bad because spades, well, not in Lenormand, it would be more the wands. I was going to say spades are traditionally with playing cards not a good suit, but it's from the German aspect, it would seem that the clubs are actually worse than the spades. So there we have our man and woman card, which are aces. But then we have all these court cards. And those court cards can remind you, when you see them come up, that those may or may not relate to a person. So while we have the child here, that could also be an actual child. So it's a reminder that it means new beginnings, but it could actually be a real child. This could actually be a romantic interest. Right? This could be a woman. This could be a stable man. This could be, think about the snake gets put off as that could be a false woman. And so there's a whole system kind of around that where if you can see that they're the actual face cards, it lets you know that those could actually be actual people, and to kind of remind yourself that that's possible that they would be other people. Now, there's others also where the rider can sometimes stand in as maybe if you're having an affair with somebody, or if you are with somebody but you have another love interest that's coming, it could sometimes be the rider. There's different cards that can represent different people that aren't even face cards, so I guess it gets a little bit more complicated. But in a broad sense of the words, one of the benefits of having playing cards is that it can open up the field to, okay, we're talking about change, but this is in an area that seems like we're talking about a friend or something like that. You know, is this possible that this is what this is talking about? And if you look on, and I know I'm using this book a lot because, again, I just have it handy and it's small. So I don't have a lot of Lenormand books, and most of them are then in my Kindle, so this is just easier. So we have the stork, and we have, it's the Queen of Hearts. So a lot of times when you get a book, it will list who they could be if it's a person. So this could be a chaperone, a doctor, a caretaker, foster parents, a nurse, a female relation, a sister. You know, kind of can list what kind of people this could possibly be. Now, I think that this one actually lists people for about everything, like a coffin could be a funeral director or someone stuck in the past or an ancestor. I will say that I don't read a lot for just random people off of the face cards. That, you know, that's a lot of people if you go off of all the face cards. But it's just another thing to keep in mind if it seems like the situation has to do with a person, or the question has to do with some other people, and then we have face cards here, we can look and see how that might indicate that that is a person that we're talking about in the reading itself. And so one of the ways that we can pick up on that with Lenormand, even though there's not so many actual people cards, is to pay attention to the court faces on the cards themselves. So that's just a little tip, and whoa, that's a little tip, as well as again, another reason as to why I do suggest that everybody have at least one deck with good, nice, obvious playing card inserts, so that you can see if that's something that resonates with you. Some people don't use that. Again, I don't use that a whole lot, but sometimes it confirms what I already see in the reading. It's just an extra layer of confirmation, but having it there is an extra layer of information that you have to access, and becoming comfortable with that and seeing if that works for you is only going to happen, I think, if you have it kind of front and center where you can pay attention to it. So there we have that. Now, our two cards for today are the mice and the heart. So let's find, this is one of my favorite ship cards, because I love pirate ships. I don't know if anybody here watches the TV show. I think it's on, I don't know what it's on. I want to say it's one of the bigger channels, because I use somebody's like away password so I can watch it on the computer. It's not HBO. I think it might be Stars. Well, you can look it up. It's called Black Sails, and it is amazing. It is not for the weak of heart, but it is absolutely amazing. And the ships, just watching that show, and just amazing to me how these ships floated and fought and braved storms and crossed the Atlantic. And also we can see why so many are in the bottom of the Atlantic. But I love that, and that is one of my favorite ship cards. I love it. But this isn't about the ship cards. This is about the mice cards and the heart card. So let's find the mice. Where? I probably passed it, and you're all like, lady, go back. Yep, clearly I already passed them both. I was thinking about Black Sails, I guess, and not paying attention to what I was doing. So we have the mice, and where's the heart card? Am I missing the heart card? Or is that an indication that this is a very poor heart card that I'm not, oh, it's right there. No, it's got even flames around it. So it's an indication that I'm not 100% myself as yet. I'm trying, people. I'm trying. Today's been rough. I've just been sleeping and so tired. I'm trying. But here we have the mice, and we have the heart card number 23 and number 24. And so let's pull out our handy dandy little white book. So here we have number 23. Mice are about eating away, losing something, or undermining a situation. And then we have the heart, which is about love, joy, and it's a positive card. It's the yes card. They're like in Kipper, it's the official, no, the military person who basically says, or is it the official? No, I think it's a military person basically says, this is so. But yes, it's the yes card. And very positive card. Well, is it on our positive scale, or is that just me calling it a positive card? Let's take a look. So we have the mice, which are in the full-on negative row, and we have the heart, which is on the full-on positive row. So this is an actual positive card that will uplift the cards around it. We have an actual negative card that will bring down the cards around it. I guess they'll in together, kind of balance each other out. So here we have something being eaten away. What's being eaten away? A relationship. So that's not necessarily a good. This is also the key card or the topic card for relationships. So if you're doing a relationship reading and you're wanting to know about a relationship, you would pull, look for the cards around the heart card. Of course, you have the commitment or the ring card, which would be more for a marriage or a long-term committed relationship as well. There's something I was going to go look out and I did not. So we have love being eaten away here. Now, the same thing here. We have love. What kind of love is it? It's a diminishing love. So this may be that the actual love, this is something that is eating away at a relationship. Something's being eaten away. What's being eaten away? It's the love. It's the love. But in this one is quite interesting when you swap it, because here we have a relationship. Well, what kind of relationship is it? Well, it's a one that's eating away. It's diminishing something. So it's the relationship itself is in some way diminishing a situation. So to me, this would be not a healthy relationship in this order, because we have the relationship itself is causing things to be diminished, causing things to be eaten away. It's probably not a good relationship. Whereas this indicates something we might look over here is eating away at the relationship. So the way that things are ordered is always important, and you kind of ask yourself about the first card. Okay, this is this. How does this influence that? What does this? So this is this. This is a relationship. What kind of relationship? A diminishing one. This is something being eaten away. What's being eaten away? A relationship. And so, yeah. So we have very, very negative and a very, very positive card here. Now, I heard a really fun little thing about the mice. I want to say that I heard this from Hex Claire, because Annika from, not Quilfin, but Annika from Nobody's Here, she had pointed out that people had said that the Caitlin Matthew books aren't that accurate. I've heard the same thing about Raina George, that it's kind of her own system and you have to just kind of follow the Raina George one. Mr. Andy's book, I haven't heard so much negative about, just an understanding that it's very, very traditional. But I think that, again, when you have very traditional things that are used perhaps in different ways in different areas, it becomes quite difficult to find out what is right and what is the real traditional way to do it. So I think it's, again, comes down to that idea of finding what works for you and staying with it and not getting too overwhelmed. But she also made note, which I thought was quite appropriate and quite helpful. And when I learned to read Lenormand, first it was just off the little white book. Just basic meanings, basic understandings, how you put it together. And then the bulk of what I learned was from Hex Claire, who is a German woman. But she did come from a perspective of tarot as well, although I think she has pretty good separating the two. And then by Maciel, and I always pronounce his name wrong, he is a Lenormand Kipper playing card reader. Like, he doesn't come from tarot at all. And so I think is quite, you get quite a lot of that, just that traditional understanding of the cards. So those are the two sources that I mostly learned to read from. I didn't even get a Lenormand book until I had already been reading Lenormand professionally. And so I think that when you get books that are written by people who are tarot readers, it gets to be a little bit more iffy, some of the ways that they do things. But in the end, when you figure out your core meanings, your core way of readings, and you stay with it so that you have consistent readings, like that's the most important thing versus, we're never going to know truthfully exactly how somebody, 100 years ago might have done things because that's going to shift and change depending on areas, I think, in which they're being read. But I do think that finding people who aren't coming from a situation of tarot to Lenormand, just in terms of source, I think is quite helpful. And I think I just ran off on a rabbit trail. But, I was saying, I believe that and she would be coming from the German perspective because she is German, but she has some English videos on playing card reading as well as on Lenormand reading, and she talked about the mice, whereas if you get a mice where you can see where their front and their butts are, now this is a little bit difficult because we actually have it from both ways, so you'd have to pick one actually, but the front end is what's being eaten away and the back end is getting pooed upon. So somebody backfiring out there, having problems with their muffler. So that's a little funny thing about directionality and mice that I heard. So again, some decks might be better at that. Let's see what this deck has for the mice card. Yeah, this one's a little hard, although I'd probably go for this guy, and this is being eaten, and this is being pooed upon. But there you have it, a little tip about the mice. So let's see what our question of the day is. What do you find eats the most away at relationships and friendships, and what are some things that you do to offset that in relationships? I kind of talked about this before, and I can't remember in what context, but for me, what I think that really can cause an eating away of a relationship is, any kind of relationship, is when you have an imbalance. So if you have one person who is giving a lot and the other is receiving, there becomes an imbalance. And it becomes very difficult to maintain. Whereas you really need that energy exchange. Sometimes one person is going to be giving more because of the situation, and somebody might be in a bad spot for a while, but then it should swing around, and sometimes it's, that exchange should be happening. There should be give and take on both sides. Again, yes, somebody can have a rough patch, and your friend needs to kind of, or your partner needs to step in and do the bigger bulk for a while. But then that should shift also when they're having a bad time. That you should come in to kind of bolster the relationship while they get through a crisis, and then it should return back to that equitable energy exchange. So I think one of the most difficult, or one of the most things that eats the way at relationships the most, is when you do have an inequality of exchange of energy. I guess is how I would put it. So one person is giving way more than the other person is. And so eventually that person who is giving all the time is going to be drained, number one, is going to feel resentful, and it just creates a completely unbalanced relationship. And so I think that is a major thing that can eat away. And the way I think is always keeping in check with your relationships. Have you been, are you giving enough to the relationship is what you're getting back, and kind of always keeping that in check. The other big thing would be communication. I think that if you have good communication in a relationship, that solves so many problems. Friendships, partnerships, family ships, whatever that might be. Because if you can actually say, hey, I'm feeling a little drained here, then you can actually talk about the energy exchange is off balance, and have that communication about that, and write it before it gets to be a major problem. So I think communication, and equitable energy exchange. Those are the things that I I see most can, over time, really wear away at and eat away at a relationship. You know, there's other sub things that go along that, like a lack of respect, but I think that goes with that equal energy exchange. If everybody's giving to the relationship and taking from the relationship in fairly equitable amounts, that generally indicates that there's a mutual respect going on. So I think that there's lots of subcategories that can go, because respect's certainly a big one too. But I guess for me it's that communication, and that, you know, we don't have one person giving and the other person taking all the time. So there you go. This has been Lenormarch day number 18, and I will see you tomorrow, as well as tomorrow is Saturday, so we will have a live chat at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, and I hope to see everybody there. Talk to you later.